Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Shri Radha Madhava ki Jai, Shri Radha Kala Chanji ki Jai, Gaura Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. All together. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Hare Krishna, good morning. Buenos dias. So this morning we'll be discussing politics and saints and how they intersect. So stay tuned, and we'll also hear about a monstrous ruler named Vena. Yes. So what just happened? Someone left their post and left an opening for this monstrous ruler to come. Who left? King Anga. Yes, if it's one word, you can just shout it out and I'll repeat it. Yes, King Anga left his, otherwise we waste so much time. King Anga left his post in the middle of the night, right? He just disappeared. And the citizens were very sorrowful because he was such a nice king. Why did he leave? Because Vena was a monster, killing other children. And everywhere he would go, what would people say? Here comes cruel Vena. Yeah. So Anga left, recognizing that there was nothing he could do to reform Vena. And this was Krishna's arrangement to help him in his spiritual life, as Prema helped us understand yesterday. Now, we will see what happens next. Chapter 14 of Canto 4, the story of King Vena. Starting with text 1. The great sage Maitreya continued, O great hero Vidura, the great sages, headed by Bhrigu, were always thinking of the welfare of the people in general. When they saw that in the absence of King Anga, there was no one to protect the interests of the people, they understood that without a ruler, the people would become independent and non-regulated. So we'll hear a lot of qualities of saintly people or devotees. So what do we hear in this verse? The saintly people are what? Always thinking of the welfare of others, yes. And can you think of another example in Bhagavatam where we see this quality of course we see it in many places. In the beginning of Bhagavatam we see Parikshit, yes. Specifically I'm thinking the sages of Naimisharanya, yeah. And they're doing 1,000-year sacrifice for the welfare of us, the people in Kali Yuga. Yes. So, text 2, whoever has the mic.
The great sages then called for the queen mother, Sunita, and with her permission they installed Vena on the throne as master of the world. All the ministers, however, disagreed with this.
So there's some foreshadowing that the ministers didn't think it was a good idea. Anyway, Vena was installed. Text 3.
It was already known that Vena was very severe and cruel. Therefore, as soon as all the thieves and rogues in the state heard of his ascendance to the royal throne, they became very much afraid of him. Indeed, they hid themselves here and there as rats hide themselves from snakes.
Thank you. So Srila Prabhupada points out here that when there's a weak government, then thieves and criminals can proliferate and cause harm to others. And although Vena was not a good king, at least he was very strong, and there wouldn't be these criminals around disturbing people. So it's not a good situation, but it could be worse. Well, yeah, one big criminal instead of many small ones, which is worse. Okay, text 4.
When the king ascended to the throne, he became all-powerful with 8 kinds of opulence. Consequently, he became too proud. By virtue of his false prestige, he considered himself to be greater than anyone. Thus, he began to insult great personalities.
Interesting lessons here. When you have too much material opulence, it can become distracting and you can become proud. We also just saw this in the same canto in another personality. Who is that personality who became proud of too much material opulence? Daksha. Yes. Why? In what ways was he opulent? Prajapati. He was the most expert Prajapati. That's why his name is Daksha, because he could produce many offspring. And also, he was opulent in terms of his family heritage. Who's his father? Lord Brahma. That's a pretty good heritage. And also very wealthy. So he became puffed up. And Shiva explains that exactly in the same way. When someone has too much opulence, they can miss the good qualities of great saintly people and actually criticize them. So be careful. And this is why, like Prema was pointing out yesterday, sometimes, maybe oftentimes, Krishna puts us in difficult material situations, so we are humble. And also, Prabhupada points out in the purport here that these 8 kinds of opulences are, can anyone guess? These 8 kinds of opulences, yes, they're material, and they're specifically referring to 8 mystic powers. So kings, Raja Rishis, these saintly kings, would develop mystic powers. And Prabhupada points out some of them, that they could shrink themselves smaller than the smallest. They can expand their body like Hanuman. They could create a whole kingdom. They could control everyone. They had all these mystic powers. So today is very different. As Prabhupada also points out in one of these purports, that kings today are rulers are generally, it's Shudras electing Shudras. So very unintelligent, unqualified people choosing to elect an unintelligent, unqualified person. And Prabhupada says the result is that nobody is happy. So how different is it now versus back then when kings were so powerful? They had all these mystic powers. You were going to say? Mike.
Like our current day political leaders can't even like walk up a flight of stairs, or they're like 78 years old and can't remember what they ate for breakfast the day before.
Yeah,
It's like kind of crazy to think about.
yeah, very different situation. And the Kshatriya kings, they would go out and fight in the front lines of the battle, right? Like Arjuna, he was a Kshatriya, he was a king. And now you just sit in a little control room and type some, or you tell someone to send in a code, and then missiles get shot at innocent people. Very different, this Kali Yuga. Text 5, please.
When he became overly blind due to his opulences, King Vena mounted a chariot and, like an uncontrolled elephant, began to travel through the kingdom, causing the sky and earth to tremble wherever he went.
He became blind due to his opulences. So again, this is the same type of language that Shiva uses to describe Daksha, that smrtau hatayam britamana durdrisha stabdha napashyanti hidama bhuyasa, that you lose your good intelligence, smrtau hatayam, and you become blind due to your pride. It's very dangerous to have material opulences and to not use them in Krishna's service. Like Prabhupada says, zeros, no matter how many you have, are valueless, unless what? There's a one. And what's that one? Who is that one? Krishna. So if you have many opulences, it's like a whole lot of zeros. I'm so intelligent, I'm so beautiful, wealthy, good family, powerful. It's all useless. But if it's connected to Krishna, it's perfect. And this is proper renunciation, yukta vairagya. Okay, so King Vena is making the whole world tremble. Let's go on, text 6.
All the tribesmen Brahmanas were forbidden henceforward to perform any sacrifice, and they were also forbidden to give charity or offer clarified butter. Thus King Vena sounded kettle drums throughout the countryside. In other words, he stopped all kinds of religious rituals.
Thank you. This is something we see in other places. Asuras stopping sacrifices. Who else did this in Bhagavatam? Which other Asuric leader? Kamsa? Did he? Yeah, okay. Hiranyakashipu, that's the one I was specifically thinking of. Yeah. Yeah, and Hiranyakashipu's methods were kill the saints, kill the brahmanas, stop the sacrifices. And what else did Hiranyakashipu do? You all remember? Kamsa, yeah, killed all of the babies born in the same time as Krishna. Yeah, so Asuras don't want people to worship God. And actually we'll see tomorrow in the class that Vena considered himself God. And he got irritated, I mean, not just irritated, but when the brahmanas came to him and tried to speak intelligently because they didn't want to kill him if they didn't have to. They figured, let's try to use good reason first, and then we'll use our mantras and kill him. So they tried to give him reason, and he said, you don't understand. I'm the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You should be worshiping me. So this is the mind of a demon. And it sounds like he's doing his King Vena kirtan. We do Krishna kirtan, but he's going around the countryside with kettle drums. And you can imagine he might be having brahmanas chant his glories. So he's stopping the kirtan of Krishna and promoting kirtan of himself. Text 7.
Therefore, all the great sages assembled together and, after observing cruel Vena's atrocities, concluded that a great danger and catastrophe was approaching the people of the world. Thus, out of compassion, they began to talk amongst themselves, for they themselves were the performers of the sacrifices.
So again, we see that the saintly people are compassionate, kripaya, and they're thinking of the welfare of the people in the world. Okay.
When the great sages consulted one another, they saw that the people were in a dangerous position from both directions. When a fire blazes on both ends of a log, the ants in the middle are in a very dangerous situation. Similarly, at that time, the people in general were in a dangerous position due to an irresponsible king on one side and thieves and rogues on the other.
So, in between a rock and a hard place is the English expression for this. So it's a vivid image. There's a log burning, there's ants on the middle, and the fire is coming on both sides. Sometimes, probably oftentimes in Kali Yuga, if we are in a voting position, we're having to choose between different options that are not very satisfying. Some people may be slightly more qualified than another, but in general, our options in Kali Yuga are pretty weak. So we are also in a very dangerous position. And Prabhupada will give us the simple remedy in the purport that we'll read. Okay, text 9.
Thinking to save the state from irregularity, the sages began to consider that it was due to a political crisis that they made Vena king, although he was not qualified. But alas, now the people were being disturbed by the king himself. Under such circumstances, how could the people be happy?
Thank you. So this verse reminded me of Prahlad Maharaj. He has this beautiful prayer. I think it's in the 5th canto. Because in this verse, the last line is Katham syat swasti dehinam, which means, how can there be happiness of the people in general? And Prahlad Maharaj uses this word, swasti astu vishvasya. He's thinking, may all people in the world have good fortune. Swasti astu vishvasya. And then in the next verse we'll read here, it talks about Kala, how King Vena is a very mischievous, envious person. And Prahlad also uses this exact same word. He says, Kala prasidatam. So he's praying that not only may there be welfare for all people, but specifically Kala prasidatam. The people who are asuric, may they be peaceful. May they be pacified. And then he says, Swastyastu vishvasya kala prasidatam dhyayantu bhutani shivam mitodiya. That if they practice bhakti yoga, they'll think of each other's welfare. Really sweet sentiment that Prahlad is praying for all beings in the entire universe to be peaceful, and especially the people who are like Vena. Please chill out. Please let those demons be chill. And may they all practice bhakti yoga, because then they'll think of each other as happiness, just like the sages in this section. Okay, text 10.
The sages began to think within themselves, because he was born from the womb of Sunita. King Vena is by nature very mischievous. Supporting this mischievous king is exactly like maintaining a snake with milk. Now he has become a source of all difficulties.
Yeah, so they tried to solve the problem, and now their solution is another problem. Text 11.
We appointed this Vena king of the state in order to give protection to the citizens, but now he has become the enemy of the citizens. Despite all these discrepancies, we should at once try to pacify him. By doing so, we may not be touched by the sinful results caused by him.
So we learn a lesson in responsibility in this verse. So what can we understand about responsibility in this instance? The sages feel themselves responsible, right? Because it was their choice to enthrone Vena. And they recognize that they have some karmic tie now with Vena. So doing something wrong actively will bring bad karma. And also not doing the right thing, neglecting to do the right thing is also will produce bad karma. So we should have a sense of responsibility in this way, not just actively doing the right thing, but also not neglecting to do the right thing. Yes, and allowing a wrongdoer to continue, yeah. And so now in the world, there's so many crimes going on, even in America, in Texas alone, so many people who are killed unnecessarily, and our government is not strong enough to stop these criminals. Okay, text 12.
The saintly sages continued thinking, "Of course, we were completely aware of his mischievous nature, yet we nevertheless enthroned Vena. If we cannot persuade King Vena to accept our advice, he will be condemned by the public, and we will join them. Thus, by our prowess, we shall burn him to ashes."
All right, and text 13, our last verse. Kaylee?
The great sages, having thus decided, approached King Vena. Concealing their real anger, they pacified him with sweet words and then spoke as follows.
This is interesting, huh? Saintly people being deceptive. So it looks like, in some cases, even a saint may be a little deceptive in order to do good. So what's right and wrong isn't always so clear. And we'll see that interesting section tomorrow. We'll do text 12, Sanskrit. Tadvidyadbhira satvrito Venosmabhi krito nirpa Santvito yadino vacham Nagrahisyat yadharma krit Lokadhikara sangadham Dahishyama swatejasa. Others can recite. Advidhadbhira sadvrito Dinosmabhi krito nirpa Santvito yadino vacham Nagrahishyat yadharma krit Lokadhikara sandagdham Dahishyama swatejasa. Advidadbhira sadvrito Dinosmabhi krito nripa Santvito yadino vacham nagrahishyatya dharma krit lokadikada sandagdham dahishyama swatejasa tadvidvadbhira sadvrito vinosmabhi krito nripa santvito vacham dahishyama swatejasa. Okay, please read along with me. Tat, his mischievous nature, vidvadbhi, aware of, asatvrita, impious, vena, asmabhi, by us, krita, was made, nripa, king, santvita, in spite of being pacified, yadi, if, na, our, vacham, words, na, not, grahishyati, he will accept, adharma krit, the most mischievous, lokadhik kada, by public condemnation, sandagdham, burned, dehishyama, we shall burn, swatejasa, by our prowess. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. The saintly sages continued thinking, of course, we are completely aware of his mischievous nature, yet nevertheless we enthroned Vena. If we cannot persuade King Vena to accept our advice, he will be condemned by the public, and we will join them. Thus, by our prowess, we shall burn him to ashes. Purport. Saintly persons are not interested in political matters, yet they are always thinking of the welfare of the people in general. Consequently, they sometimes have to come down to the political field and take steps to correct the misguided government or royalty. However, in Kali Yuga, saintly persons are not as powerful as they previously were. They used to be able to burn any sinful man to ashes by virtue of their spiritual prowess. Now, saintly persons have no such power due to the influence of the age of Kali. Indeed, the Brahmins do not even have the power to perform sacrifices in which animals are put into a fire to attain a new life. Under these circumstances, instead of actively taking part in politics, saintly persons should engage in chanting the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. By the grace of Lord Chaitanya, by simply chanting this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, the general populace can derive all benefits without political implications. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, so there you have it. That's the simple solution. Saintly persons are not interested in political matters, yet they're always thinking of the welfare of the people in general. And if needed, then brahmanas will come and do political maneuvering, but they're not so interested. And actually, they didn't take up the rule. It's interesting, right? They could have actually said, why don't you, Prabhu? Why don't you be the king? But they weren't interested. They rather installed someone like Vena. It was a really interesting lesson in the role of Brahmins and Kshatriyas here. But we can focus more on the glories of Sankirtan. Srila Prabhupada says, by the grace of Lord Chaitanya, by simply chanting this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, the general populace can derive all benefits without political implications. All benefits you can get from chanting the Maha Mantra. How is that? How can you get all benefit just by chanting a mantra? Can you say? Yes? Krishna is none different from his name. He's the source of everything. And Nam Akari Bahudha Nija Sarva Shaktis. All of Krishna's personal potency is there in his name. Yeah. So if someone's chanting the Maha Mantra, then they become very powerful. And we experience this, don't we? Maybe we had some bad habits, and by chanting very quickly, you're able to give them up. You may develop increased abilities like intelligence, memory, health. Your life really becomes wonderful. This is a natural symptom of practicing pure devotional service. We see this in the Nectar of Devotion, that the first two aspects of practicing pure devotional service are what? Those are the two processes, and as a result of this process, then we, kleshagni, all of the suffering in our life is destroyed, and subara, which means everything in our life becomes auspicious. Yeah. And we also see this in the Shikshastakam. Cheto darpanam arjanam bhavamaha davagni nirvapanam shreya kairava chandraka vitaranam vidyavadu jivanam. So when we chant the holy names of Krishna, it purifies our consciousness, frees us from the cycle of birth and death, and the white, how does it go? The lotus, the white lotus of the good fortune full moon. Yeah, it rises in our life and illuminates everything. Prabhupada also writes in the intro to Nectar of Devotion that devotional service is like flipping one switch that illuminates everything everywhere. That's amazing, right? Right? When we practice pure devotional service, when we chant the Maha Mantra every day, everything in our life starts to become auspicious. And we start to even see, as we discussed yesterday, that even the apparently unfortunate things in our life, we see that, oh, this is actually for my benefit. And all the while I can chant Hare Krishna and be satisfied within. And then, if people become detached in this way by chanting, then they're not stuck in the same cycle that our culture is promoting. You know, people are stuck in sense gratification, stuck in these addictions, and they become enslaved to smoking, enslaved to drinking, enslaved to whatever it is. And you become very impotent when you're struggling with these habits. Unfortunately, these four regulative principles brings us to the platform of pure human life, and then we can become very powerful. What to speak of adding the Maha Mantra on top of that? There's some more glories of the Sankirtan movement. Drishta, if you could kindly pull up in 11.532, this famous verse. Can anyone name the verse before we bring it up? 11.532. It's about Sankirtan. Krishna varnan tusha krishnam sango pangas triparshadam yagyai sankirtana prayer yajantihi sumedhasa. Yes. So, this means, who has the mic? Can you read the translation? Or maybe Samriddhi?
In the age of Kali, intelligent person performs congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead, who constantly sings.
A little slower.
In the age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead, who constantly sings the names of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions.
Thank you. Yes, so intelligent people in the age of Kali worship who? Gauranga! Yeah. And can we go to the next verse? Yes? Keep the mic closer. Hare Krishna. Okay, let's read the... Who has the mic? Prema?
My dear Lord, you are the Mahapurusha.
Next verse. No, next one. It's about Kali Yuga. One more. Yeah. It's the one about Kali Yuga. 36, thank you. Yeah. Please.
Those who are actually advanced in knowledge are able to appreciate the essential value of this age of Kali. Such enlightened persons worship Kali Yuga, because in this fallen age, all perfection of life can easily be achieved by the performance of Sankirtan.
There you have it. It's exactly what Srila Prabhupada is saying. That all perfection can come by the Sankirtan movement. And so intelligent people worship Kali Yuga. Isn't that interesting? You know, we might complain sometimes, oh, Kali Yuga is so difficult. My health is not good because the water and the air and the food and everything is polluted. And what other complaints do we have about Kali Yuga? Oh, it's so disturbing, you know, the atmosphere. It's so hard to chant Hare Krishna when you're living in Dallas. And so much intensity from the city environment. But intelligent people worship the age of Kali because you can get all perfection just from chanting. So, are there any thoughts that you all have on how chanting can bring all perfection, how saintly people are not interested in getting involved so much in politics? Prabhupada Priya?
Yeah, I was actually thinking that because this, I mean, somebody might have serious doubts about how just chanting Hare Krishna is going to change the political situation. But I was thinking, like in India, I lived in India for 19 years, and you know, for so long, like there were just one corrupt government official after the other. And then, but gradually, like ISKCON has been expanding, and like every year, 2 or 3 new temples open, and more preachings going on, and more Harinam and Japa, you know, more devotees are chanting. And then, and now they've got Modi, you know, who's like, I mean, by Kali Yuga standards, he's practically a Raja Rishi, you know. And, you know, and he's doing things like the first thing he did was try to clean the Ganga. And now he was very successful in establishing the temple of Ram Lala in Ayodhya, which was like centuries, you know, not being able to be done. So, yeah, so it's like, I feel like there's a direct connection between all the chanting going on in India and how the government of India has been transformed. Hopefully it will stay good.
Yeah, thank you. I was thinking something similar, that political leaders know if there's large influential groups, and they'll go specifically talk to those groups and try to win their vote. And so as ISKCON expands also in North America, then just by strength of numbers, if nothing else, there will be a lot of devotees able to vote, and we could have a serious voice in political affairs.
I would just like to extend that yeah, if we here in the U.S. keep chanting Harinam, making devotees, spreading Krishna consciousness, then maybe at one day in the future we'll also get a Raja Rishi there in the White House.
Yes. Okay. Drishta had something to say, unless it's on this same topic.
Something to say.
Let's continue this topic for a few minutes, and then we'll go to Drishta's point. Then let's take Drishta's point. Yeah.
Are we in questions?
That's fine. Go for it.
Yeah, it's kind of like we're reading this, that there's no need for Brahmins to engage in politics when we can just chant Hare Krishna. But then if you kind of look at ISKCON, there's actually a lot of politics kind of circling around. It's not a negative sense, but there seems to be
politics.
There's a I guess we should look up the Google definition of politics. The activities with the governance of a country or other area, especially the debate or conflict among individuals or parties having or hoping to achieve power.
Okay, it has to do with power and rule.
Yeah,
and
managing.
Yeah, certainly there's management that needs to be done. Certainly there's power, different positions within a religious society. Okay.
It seems
do you have?
kind of practically we see this need of a GBC. We see this need of a temple president. We see this need of a council, of voting and stuff like that. And it doesn't seem like we can kind of just chant Hare Krishna and then the whole temple is going to be run perfectly or things like that.
Konteya Prabhu, would you like to add any comments on this? I feel you'd be.
How many minutes I have? Two quick things. Every human consortium needs some leadership. It's just a law of nature. And about politics, meaning discussing how things should be, or what should be done, what should not be done, what are the priorities of the community. My observation is that it can be as everything can be in the three gunas. There is politics. Generally, when we talk about politics, it's in Rajaguna, some little intrigues and discussion how to get some power, personal power, so there is some selfishness. It's like politics in Rajaguna. Then there is politics in Tamoguna, very political. Is when we just criticize whoever is doing anything, any leader, anybody who dares to take some responsibility, and then we criticize the person ruthlessly. Even not to his or her face, just in the back, That's more like politics in Tamoguna. Then there is also politics in Saguna. We do have a vision. We want a dharma to succeed, to flourish, and we do have some opinions. Sometimes we even want to make some effort to assist dharma to be flourishing in our communities, and we do it in the proper way, through the proper channels, through the proper procedures. I stop there.
Thank you so much, Konteya Prabhu. Yeah, that's helpful to consider politics and the different modes of nature, and how it's necessary to have some structure. Actually, Srila Bhaktisaranta, Srila Prabhupada, they set up governance structure specifically, because you have to have that in order to spread Krishna consciousness in a major way. So we should do it in the mode of goodness. Okay. And then we'll hear Nanda Braja.
Hare Krishna. I just wanted to thank, I always love your classes. Brihat Mridanga Prabhu, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
I wanted to share, I listened to His Holiness Mukunda Swami, a recording of him giving a class on today's verse. And it was probably from about 10, 15 years ago. And he said that philosophically, devotees are not political, but practically, that's different. And he gave the example of how in New Vrindavan, it's in a very, very rural area. So people in power, major decisions are made by just a couple of people in that area. And so the devotees of New Vrindavan would pay attention to local elections and they would vote so that they could make sure that do their best to have someone around who would make decisions that were favorable to that community. And we even see in our group chats here in the neighborhood that we are made aware of council meetings and zoning things so that we can just know what's happening and make decisions that are beneficial to the community. But on a philosophical level, devotees don't align with a certain political party and think that that is, and that leader is our God and that person is going to completely make our lives better because we know otherwise.
Thank you very much. Helpful points. And now I'm thinking, how nice would it be if someone has the propensity and wants to go into politics, then and they want to get into local government in this area, they can help with promoting Dharma and promoting spiritual practices that would uplift everybody. Okay, Nanda Braja Prabhu.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity to ask this question. And I was thinking, you have such a nice saintly character that you were kind of skirting the politics, not skirting it, I don't know if that's a proper word, but you're kind of going, no, let's talk about the Maha Mantra. So I was really appreciating your saintly quality. For me, I was like very stimulated by the politics. I was like, oh. So I was thinking this too, is that should we, Srila Prabhupada says in the purport that when the government is bad, then saintly people should step in and for the welfare of others. And you kind of made the comment there. I was thinking, should we actually be encouraging it that we step into government and help the people in general? I do like this thought that we can chant Hare Krishna and then things will, Krishna will do his work and his part. But also there's a part of we need to take our own endeavor, right? So should we be endeavoring? What's your thoughts on that to enter politics?
That's a great question. Well, I think others can speak better on this. I'll just share that Srila Prabhupada encouraged the In God We Trust party, at least for some time, and then eventually it somehow didn't work out. But I know there's at least that one instance in Srila Prabhupada's lifetime. And then we also know that Srila Prabhupada would approach influential people, celebrities, political leaders, and he would try to influence them. So he was acting as a brahmana, trying to talk to the so-called kshatriyas and influence them. So we have that. These are a few examples I can share, but perhaps others can speak on should devotees take initiative in political affairs. Yes, Prabhu.
I think it's very valuable from that purport you had brought up earlier that was talking about how in previous ages saintly persons were very powerful and they had this ability, the fire sacrifices to give new life to animals. They had this ability. They were capable enough where they could influence big political situations because they had welfare in mind and they could see that things are not going well, and so they had this ability to change things with their mystic siddhis. But I think what the point Prabhupada is trying to bring up is that it's not that we don't care about what's happening in the world, if it's sad or if it's bad or the political structure is messed up. It's more like, what can you really do on a large scale? You can in your local, like Mataji was saying, you can like a New Vrindavan situation where it's a small situation, so your voting has more power. So there's an impact. So there's a practical aspect of it. So Prabhupada, like you said, as a Brahmin, he's going around not himself stepping into politics because that gets very complicated. But he, as a Brahmin, he's influencing people that are already in power. And so just this idea that we do what we can practically to influence, but we also understand that politics itself is very complicated and nobody trusts a politician, right? The first thing to get up there, you have to lie to get up there. So just is like you said, philosophically, we don't align because our nature is not. Devotees by nature are good people that don't want to lie, that promote honesty, and that can't pretend to be someone else all the time. So, what we can do with the Harinam, with the Sankirtan Yagya, is that's how we influence the atmosphere, and by preaching, by influencing people. That is more how we are impacting the world rather than ourselves stepping in to positions and trying to become politicians, because that's very complicated.
Thank you. Yeah. It's a dangerous environment to be in politics, all that association with people who are cutthroat and Not trying to just grapple for power.
And who's to say that if once I'm in power, I get power? Who's to say I won't become corrupt? Power corrupts, right? So, am I strong enough spiritually to maintain that spiritually when I have power?
Yeah, that's a nice point. So if we were to go in that direction, then we need to make sure to be very strong in our sadhana and be really fixed up. And I'm also thinking that influencing the scientists is a huge way to change the world, because they're the thought leaders in 2024. So some devotees are going to pursue PhDs so they can become influential in that area, because if you influence scientists, then they can do big service. Yeah, because right now a lot of them are promoting atheism. Other thoughts? I saw a few hands. Drishtadyumna?
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking on Abai's point is that I think eventually we are going to need like direct devotees to be like, like we talk about kings a lot, like Rajarshis and stuff like that. And so I think if we want to keep expanding the movement, we are going to eventually want our devotees directly in positions of power, right? But I was just thinking like how Brahma, before he does a passionate activity, he prays, please protect me. So perhaps those devotees can also pray that I'm entering a very passionate environment, whether they're the king or they're just like some councilman or something, but please protect me.
Yeah, that's nice. Pray for protection.
I really thought this point Abai was making of being Brahminical, and us as ISKCON being Brahminical. And how do I say this? What I've noticed is there's not very many Brahminical people in ISKCON. Okay, I shouldn't say. Whoa! There's a lot of people whose nature is not Brahminical. There we go. And so then we look at the qualities of Brahminical qualities, but yet our nature is not there, right? So we can have in the mode of goodness and our nice sadhana, but the nature is not Brahminical so much. It's more of politics or science or these or that. And so I was just thinking that's an interesting point of are we as ISKCON all Brahmins and we should only be looking at Brahminical positions in this, or should we be working ourselves and understand that everybody has different natures, but how can we be in those natures in a Brahminical way or a mode of goodness way?
And my understanding is Prabhupada was first establishing Brahmins very clearly, and then he said that the other 50% of his mission was to establish Varnashram Dharma, because there's, like you said, people of all different natures. So maybe we can have one last point.
I was just scanning through. There's a series of letters that Prabhupada wrote to Balavanta Prabhu, who was running for office. And in the beginning, Prabhupada's like, "Oh, this is very inspiring to me that you're getting actively involved in politics." And I think at the time he was temple president of Atlanta, and he asked Prabhupada if he could give up his service to full-time get into politics. And Prabhupada gave his blessings, said, "Do whatever you have to do. This is very important." Like that he was encouraging him like anything. But then it came to the point where Balavanta was realizing it was going to cost a lot of money, and he was a full-time devotee. He didn't have his own source of funds to support his political campaign. And when he asked Prabhupada if he could use money from ISKCON's money, Prabhupada said, "No, we can't do that. That would be a diversion from our spiritual goals, and I think your ideas are utopian, and it's not going to happen. It's just the money's going to go down the tubes, and just forget it." Okay. So, yeah, that was how it went. But at first, Prabhupada was thinking, okay, maybe this can happen. But when he realized that, because for a political campaign, the support should come from your political supporters, and he realized that Balavanta was lacking actual political support from the citizens, then he saw if it's just us and supporting us, then it's not going to happen. So, yeah.
Thank you.
When the citizens in general are a little more favorable to Krishna consciousness, and we actually get a following, that will, finance a campaign or something, then it's like, okay, now we're talking, we can do something.
That's interesting. Point to leave on. Perhaps if ISKCON gets more reputation in society, then we can have more ability to influence society. Because right now, many people don't even know that we exist. So, anyway, there's a lot of opportunities for expanding the Sankirtan movement. And let's pray for guidance. Thank you all so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Radha Kalachandji ki jai. Hari Hari Bol.